He's just Ken. When I was growing up, I played Street Fighter 2. And it was one of the first times that I got into a fighting game seriously. I learned combos, I got decently good. I got good enough that I was able to play at the arcade, and good enough that I did a couple of campus tournaments. Ken was one of my mains at the time. I moved from Ken to Cammy later on. But I remember that people used to say Ken is just a recolor of Ryu. There's no difference between the two. Now, nuanced players, people that really played Street Fighter 2, would argue, and they'd be right, that Ken was not just another Ryu. The characters felt genuinely different in many ways. And playing one did not necessarily mean that you would be good with the other. But I also think that in a way, and I feel like I could be reaching far beyond the actual intended source material here, but maybe not, maybe it was intended. Just because two different men do boxing, just because two different men learn Shotokan karate, doesn't mean they're both at the same skill level, and doesn't mean they both employ that art the same way. Ken has fundamental differences in the fighting style than Ryu. Both men use the exact same fighting style. Both men were trained together and got basically the same amount of training. And both men took that training and used it almost the same, but vastly different. That's interesting to me. It's interesting to me because it's not the same thing as Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Two characters that were very much a color swap, and then given basically slightly different movement, but were completely different. They didn't use the same fighting style. This shows the fundamental difference in two characters, two people. And I always thought that was more interesting than color swap ninja. But in terms of a toy, is he just color swap Ryu? Is he a 100% egregious repaint? There's argument to be made that he is. And not that I'm disappointed by it, but I don't know how much you'd be able to defend that he isn't. My main goal here in this one is just like years ago how I had to defend Ken over and over and over again against the he's just red Ryu. Can I defend this action figure? Are there differences? And what are they? Let's talk about Ken. Now this part, I'll admit, there's not much to talk about. We have the exact same kind of thing going on that we had at the other. He's got his box, just like the other boxes that we already talked about. On the back of his box, it's just one figure because he was released basically by himself. Wave 1 basically came out. So the way this line has been released is that we got Ryu and Fei Long. Then we got Chun-Li standalone, pretty much. She came out after those two. They weren't all released in at the same time. And then, now we've got Ken, but Ken doesn't seem to be with the other characters on the back here. He's with just Ken. It's about the only thing I really have to point out about the box. Let's get to the actual reason we're doing this. Let's look at Ken. Okay, so here we are basically at the point of the video. What's different? Now, I would argue not too much, but enough for what could have been an easy repaint. We are reusing the hands, we're reusing the arms. These look like the same chest. He's got a different skin tone, barely, but it's a different chest. Let's move both these figures forward. They both have the same feet, but here's where some of the differences really start to kick in. Of course, the heads are different. We see that. That's simple. But they did go out of their way here. The gis are different. This could have just been reused and painted red, and probably nobody would have complained, but they didn't do that here. His is ripped up along the sleeves. His is not. His is kept in better condition, where it feels like he's traveled, he's wandered. Ryu has broken out the sleeves and torn up the gi over time, and it's his main suit attire. Kin, being a different kind of man in general, especially what we see from the video games and the anime, kept his suit nicer. He probably buys more, he probably has more, he probably keeps them intact, and he probably wears them for tournaments and such, and keeps them in good condition. That is kind of a character idea right here that we can see visually. It's being done. It is different. And the same for the pants. Down here, we are looking at a difference in the way that they do the bottoms of the legs here. That's nice. That does actually add a little bit of difference to these characters. Otherwise, the rest of it is the same. Fire Hadoken, blue Hadoken. They each got two heads. They each got the exact same hands. Now his head, he has this very serious head and this happy head. And I'm honestly curious here. Let me grab the box real quick. Does it look like Kin? I feel like he's spot on. You couldn't have got him any better. What about Kin? If we're looking at the box right here, right? Can we recreate that? Can I get this hand up, right? Get it in. Turn it this way. He's got to have it pointed a little bit like this. Move. That's kind of what we're looking at. He needs to look down a little bit. Maybe bring his fist down. Can we do that? Can we recreate that moment? I don't know that I'm completely sold on his face. Like, it's there, but I don't know that I'm completely sold on it. Maybe we switch this. Now, Kin is known for, having his smiles and stuff like that. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't know that I'm in love with the face. Either of the faces. Like, they're fine, but I don't know that I'm completely in love with it. I will say, I can tell who he's supposed to be. So that's a plus, okay? I'm not sitting here like, oh, the head sculpt is terrible. See if we can't get that right here. Yeah, he wins, right? Okay. I mean, I can see it. I can see what they're going for here. It doesn't bother me that bad. And I actually think mildly, it's kind of growing on me. Like right here, I've already got this, and I feel like it's already working a little better. I don't know why, but turning him to the side like that really kind of sold it. Are you seeing what I'm getting at now? Doesn't he already kind of look like Kin a little bit more? I feel like that somehow already kind of sold it for me a little bit. So let's do this. There. Does that look about right? Because I feel like for some reason it's working on me a little bit more here. I don't know. Maybe it very much comes down to the angle. Looking at the face dead on bothers me a little bit, but otherwise I'd say that he's right. We expect and got all the same movement out of the character, which is fine. We got a lot of repaint, which we expected, a lot of reuse, but in the long run, less reuse than I was expecting, even down to the belt, where the belt here is different than the belt that Ken has. That's genuinely interesting, because this was something they could have cheaped out on, and I don't even know if most people would have called them out, in all honesty. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a big win for the line. See, this is one of those figures that they could have cheaped out on hard. It's almost a 100% reuse, and almost nobody would have called them out for it. I believe that. I really do. In fact, we've seen it in other lines where, like, there's really not that much difference between this guy and this guy. Look at lines like, and you know what, I'll call myself out. Look at lines like Motu. Because if you're talking about like Motu Origins, that is some egregious repaint reuse. There's He-Man, Blue He-Man, other Blue He-Man, other Blue He-Man with a thief mask, brown hair He-Man, like, excuse me, it's egregious how many times they can just reuse the exact same guy, not even change the head, and be like, he's completely different, he's whole new. They didn't do that here. We got different pants, different gi, different belt, different heads. There's a lot of reuse here, which we expected. But I gotta congratulate them for going out of their way to do probably more than I honestly expected them to do. And that's going to hold the rest of the line. I'm very interested to see where this line goes. Our next two things, I believe, don't we have M. Bison coming soon? Is it M. Bison and Dalcium? I don't remember. I know that I've got them pre-ordered. I'm just not paying a whole lot of attention. When they get here, they get here. Until then, there's much more to open, much more to see, much more to talk about, and much more to enjoy in the world of toys. And I think I'm really happy to go ahead and put this one on my shelf. And the longer I spent with him, the more the face is starting to grow on me. Because that's the only part of it that I was even slightly worried about. And that worry is dying fast. And that's great news. Ken, added to the collection. As far as I could tell, he's great. Which gives me massive hope for the rest of the line. Because if they didn't decide to cheap out on the one they could have cheaped out on, then they're not willing to cheap out on any of it. And that's tremendous news. I can't wait to see what the rest of this line looks like from Jada. And I am a devoted fan at this point. Later on.
I have spoken. Take what you will from it.